What's up, Sushi Squad? We back here with some more Trove to the Drove. And just letting you guys know with a quick little video that the BARD is finally available on consoles. Oddly enough, the BARD seems to be available on PlayStation and Xbox, but not on Nintendo Switch, which is kind of weird because the Switch was actually the most, up-to-date version of Trove on consoles. I say most up-to-date, but that's not saying that it was actually up-to-date with PC or anything like that. It's just that the Nintendo Switch version of Trove ended up having the Chloromancer Rework, while the Xbox and PlayStation didn't. But now, you guys on Xbox and PlayStation not only have the Chloromancer Rework, but you do in fact have the BARD. So I want to give you guys a quick little rundown of the BARD and the Chloromancer Rework and so on and so forth. But for those of you that are just wanting the info, the BARD is out now, okay? And as I predicted, we didn't get a release date. We didn't know anything about this, okay? I just randomly ended up getting comments from you guys while I was doing a stream earlier, and then I just logged in to check it out for myself and just to confirm that, yes, in fact, we not only have the BARD going on, but there is, in fact, a new event going on as well. There is also, if we open up the store right here, there's a new pack with a bunch of goodies, and some of those seem to actually be some BARD themed costumes and so on and so forth, which is pretty cool because that means that now, you guys on console ended up actually having a BARD costume, even though the BARD wasn't technically in the game, which is kind of weird. But I'll have other videos that are going to talk about the event and so on and so forth. I've been a little bit under the weather again today, most of all just tired trying to turn my sleep schedule around, and so that's why this video is a little bit later today, and my apologies for that. But let's talk about the BARD really quick. I'm obviously not using the BARD on console just because, generally speaking, the BARD is extremely expensive, not only to craft, but also, I mean, generally speaking, I would recommend that you buy the BARD either by grinding out credit pouches and then buying all of the necessary resources in order to end up crafting the BARD, outside of obviously crystalline core and bound brilliance and stuff and sentient shards. This is a terrible class to end up grinding. But if you end up getting credit pouches, you could just end up buying the pack, which obviously is going to end up being quite expensive, and credit pouches are probably going to end up being on a really high expensive price right now. But frankly speaking, it's just generally going to end up being better than trying to grind the character out free to play, just because you can already see these resources are daunting, and we have a brand new resource called Bardium. So stupid. That is a tier 5 geode caves resource. Now, I can't fault them too much for this, because I understand that the devs' mentality is, oh, well, it's a new thing. We want to, either drive up sales or just make it so that it's something that is really difficult for new players to obtain easily, or existing players, I should say. But I mean, generally speaking, the free-to-play method of actually getting this guy is astronomically, brokenly expensive. Like, my God, even for somebody like me that's at the end game, I'm looking at these resources and I'm cringing, dude, because this is more expensive than the Vanguard is to craft. And the Vanguard is extremely expensive to craft just because of all those sentient shards, because sentient shards are gotten from rampage challenges and or just crafted rampage bosses, because yes, you can craft them. But the point is that the Vanguard kind of is just 100% focused on stuff relating to the Neon City biome, whereas the BARD is kind of just a mishmash of everything that is to do with Trove. But anyways, the alternative way of getting the character, as I mentioned, is going to end up being from the store, which is going to end up being quite expensive, generally speaking. It's going to end up being somewhere around 20 bucks, maybe, let's say 30 bucks, depending on your currency. Obviously, currencies are going to end up changing that, but the point that I'm trying to get at is you could just end up grinding this free to play, and as you can see, you could either get a couple mounts and costumes and stuff, or for 500 extra credits, you could end up just getting the class itself. And as a quick review of the class, I mean, obviously, I've got plenty of BARD videos that you can search up on the channel, but generally speaking, I would actually rate the class 4 out of 5. Because it's not a perfect class. I would say that it's actually a little bit overly complicated, but I've known that some of you guys in the comments before have actually said that that's one of the things that you like most about the BARD. But the reason why I actually would rate the BARD so highly compared to some of the other classes in the game is because it does both aspects that Trove offers in terms of gameplay very, very well. The Bard can end up handling the delves and handling bosses and so on and so forth to a decent degree. I mean, it's not like a super mega ultra boss killer or anything like that, but the fact is that it can handle it. It's not like you're grinding dungeons or doing Leviathan bosses on the Shadow Hunter where you end up swapping off of it. The Bard not only can end up dishing out a pretty decent amount of damage, but it can also end up being a really, really good support class in the game, because you can actually so give a buff with your ultimate ability that will either end up increasing damage with everybody that ends up being in the surrounding area for like 30 seconds or a minute or something. I forget what the exact time is. I'm sorry. I think it's like 30 seconds. Probably more than that, frankly speaking. But the point is, you can end up giving a damage buff, you can give a movement speed buff, so it ends up being like a really, really good class, just in terms of not only helping everybody, but also just helping yourself. Because as you end up playing with the class, basically you are kind of playing songs and will end up building up stacks by doing certain performances, performing certain moves, I should say, that will ultimately end up increasing your stacks, and at higher stack intervals you end up actually getting damage increases, and the potency of your ultimate abilities end up becoming a lot stronger as well. Oh, look at that. I ended up actually, was that gain mastery? Anyways, Bard generally is a really, really good character and really, really fun, because while it can end up handling itself in terms of delves and stuff, it can end up doing speed farming extremely well, which is really, really cool. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that obviously the PC version of Trove is still way ahead of you guys on console. You know, the most recent update we ended up introducing a pay-to-win method for the delves, which still just absolutely flabbergasts me. I think it's like the stupidest thing they ever added to the game, but whatever, we're not here to debate that. The point is that you guys don't have that on console right now. However, with the Bard, it does mean that you do have the update or the rework to the Chloromancer, and the Chloromancer rework not only ends up making the character completely viable, you know, you're strong enough that you can end up handling endgame dungeons and so on and so forth. You're not going to turn anybody's head in terms of speed farming. Obviously, you know, the class just isn't going to end up being very fast. So if it's an option of speed farming versus fighting bosses, let's say you're trying to end up speed farming, you could probably just take all of your magic gear off of your Chloromancer, throw it onto the Bard, because the Bard is a magic character. And you'll end up just doing dungeons like way faster, right? But if you want to end up being a boss killer, there's actually like no class better than the Chloromancer right now. Chloromancer can actually quite easily solo Leviathan bosses with not being like absolutely completely maxed out. Obviously, you know, other characters can end up soloing Leviathans as well, but the point is that the Chloromancer just makes such an easy job of it, just because the Chloromancer has such insanely high amounts of damage. Now, one last thing I do gotta mention to you guys, just because I always get comments about whether the Bard is going to end up being a magic character or a physical character, what weapon does it use. The Bard is actually a magic character, so magic damage is going to be what you're going for on your gems and on your gear and so on and so forth. And then the odd thing is that it actually uses the fist weapon, so the same fist weapon that the Vanguard uses. Now, here's the interesting thing. If you take the fist weapon off of your Vanguard and it's just chilling in your inventory, it's going to end up showing that it's physical damage, but as soon as you equip it to the Bard, it's automatically going to convert it into magic damage, which is like so weird, and just kind of begs the question, why do they even have physical and magic damage? Just put it into one unanimous damage function and get rid of all that archaic system. But I mean, generally speaking, you can technically pay to win gems, so that's probably why they're still leaving it in, just because that would end up making, like, relieving a lot of the desire to end up getting gem augmentation items and stuff, because you could technically end up having one set of good gems that you could just use across all characters. Now, anyways, last but not least, there is the new event going on, but we aren't going to talk about that. We'll end up talking about that probably in tomorrow's video if I don't end up streaming the event earlier in tomorrow's morning or so on and so forth. But anyways, hopefully that you ended up finding this video helpful. Blech, I don't know why I'm tripping over my tongue today. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's really, really cool that the Bard's out. It just kind of sucks that we didn't actually get like any type of update whatsoever. talking about it. But the BARD is here on everything now, except for Nintendo Switch, which is kind of weird. Not gonna lie. But anyways, if you ended up finding this video helpful, or if you have any other questions about the BARD, you can end up just checking out the channel, because I've got lots and lots of other videos that are going to end up talking about everything about the BARD already, because the BARD's been out on PC for quite some time. Anyways, smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want to support the channel, and have yourselves a fantastic day, ladies and gentlemen.